7 moments. 7 brands. 7 times the world's biggest football stage handed companies something that no advertising budget could have bought. And in almost every case, the player had no idea what they had just done. One of them moved 2 bottles and wiped £2.8 billion off a company's market value in a single afternoon. One of them scored the most important goal of his career wearing headphones that were officially banned from the stadium he was standing in. One of them lifted the most famous trophy in sport while wearing a garment that most people watching had never seen before in their lives. And the craftsman who made it wash from a cafe around the corner recognized his own stitching on live television and realized he had just won his own World Cup. These are the 7 most famous moments where football and brand exposure collided at the biggest tournaments in history, and the last one on this list happened 6 days ago. Stay until the end, because number 7 is different from all the others, and the reason it is different tells you something important about where marketing is going next. Budapest, June 14, 2021. Cristiano Ronaldo sits down for a press conference before Portugal's opening match against Hungary. He notices 2 bottles of Coca-Cola in front of him. He grimaces. He removes them from view. He holds up a bottle of water and says its Portuguese name, Agua, before muttering Coca-Cola with borderline disgust. The clip is 22 seconds long. The YouTube video accumulated 22 million views within weeks. Coca-Cola is one of UEFA's most valuable official sponsors. They pay hundreds of millions of dollars for the right to have their bottles on every press conference table at every major tournament. And within hours of Ronaldo's 22-second gesture, headlines were reporting that Coca-Cola's market value had plummeted by £2.8 billion. Financial analysts later noted that Coca-Cola's stock had already been declining that morning due to an ex-dividend date adjustment, meaning the full drop cannot be attributed to Ronaldo alone. But here is what cannot be explained away. 3 copycat incidents followed immediately. Manuel Locatelli smiled broadly and placed a water bottle center stage instead of the Coca-Cola bottles before Italy's match against Switzerland. Paul Pogba removed a Heineken bottle from his press conference table. And the entire sponsorship model of placing branded bottles in front of players at press conferences was questioned publicly for the first time in tournament history. Ronaldo did not plan any of it. He simply does not drink Coca-Cola, and he was not going to pretend otherwise in front of the cameras. And Coca-Cola, the official sponsor of the tournament, paying for exactly this kind of visibility, became the story of the day in a way they absolutely did not want to be. Keep that detail in your mind. We are going to come back to it. Now here is where the story gets interesting, because the second moment on this list involves a company that was banned from the tournament entirely. Brazil, 2014. FIFA had a licensing agreement with Sony, the official electronics sponsor, and that agreement meant every competing player had been issued a free pair of Sony headphones. FIFA had banned players from all 32 teams from sporting Beats headphones during official matches, media events, and inside all official stadiums. Despite Sony handing out free headphones to all tournament players, many soccer stars took preference to wearing Dr. Dre's high-end headgear. Neymar wore Beats to training sessions. Luis Suarez wore them during practice breaks. Wayne Rooney wore them. Mario Balotelli wore them. And Beats, watching their banned product appear on the most famous athletes in the world, unprompted, by genuine preference, released a 5-minute film called The Game Before the Game. The video featured Neymar, Mario Götze, Robin van Persie, and others. It has more than 19 million views on YouTube. Marketing strategist Ellen Petri-Lentz said, "When fans see World Cup athletes wearing Beats in their downtime, by choice, it has as much impact as seeing them lace their Adidas boots or sip a sponsored beverage. Maybe more. Actually, Beats isn't a sponsor, so the message is more authentic and credible." Beats was banned from the 2014 World Cup. The clear winner of the 2014 World Cup was Beats Electronics. Sony paid for official sponsorship and handed out free headphones to every player. Players wore Beats anyway. And FIFA's attempt to suppress the brand created exactly the kind of authentic credibility that no sponsorship fee can purchase. We have seen this before. We will see it again. There is one moment coming at the end of this list that proves the pattern has not broken. This one is different from the others, because this was not accidental in the way the others were. It was planned, but the scale of what it produced was something even Nike did not fully anticipate. Neymar was the face of the 2014 World Cup. Brazil were the hosts. The tournament was his stage. And Nike, who had signed Neymar as their flagship football ambassador, had released the Hypervenom, a boot that had been designed around his playing style, that carried his name in every marketing campaign. That was the centerpiece of Nike's entire World Cup commercial strategy. The boot became synonymous with him, especially with it coming out before the 2013 Confederations Cup, where he led his team to victory. The perfect prep for the 2014 World Cup in his home country. But here is what made the Neymar Hypervenom moment legendary rather than simply successful. As a football-obsessed 12-year-old, Neymar would spray paint his football boots gold because he always wanted a pair of gold boots but couldn't find them anywhere. Nike heard that story and created the Neymar Hypervenom in gold, officially called the Sonho Dorado, the Golden Dream, for the knockout stages of the tournament. A boy who spray-painted his boots gold as a child. A global brand that heard the story, manufactured the dream, and placed those gold boots on his feet in front of 1 billion people. The Hypervenom was not an accident, but the emotional authenticity behind it, the childhood memory, the spray paint, the golden dream, turned a planned marketing moment into something that felt like a genuine human story. And that is always the most powerful thing a brand can be part of. 24 hours after Ronaldo's Coca-Cola moment, French midfielder Paul Pogba sat down for a Euro 2020 press conference following France's 1-0 win against Germany. A bottle of Heineken 0.0, non-alcoholic beer, sat prominently on the table. Pogba, a devout Muslim who doesn't consume alcohol, discreetly removed the bottle from view before addressing media. Pogba's gesture was quieter than Ronaldo's. He did not hold up a water bottle. He did not say anything about the brand. He simply moved the bottle out of frame without making it a statement. But the press conference cameras caught it. The internet caught it. And Heineken, whose alcohol-free product had been placed specifically on the press conference table as a compromise to accommodate players who do not drink alcohol, suddenly found itself in the middle of a controversy they thought they had already resolved. Heineken had initially tweeted jokingly acknowledging Ronaldo's preference for water, but deleted the tweet after Pogba's incident created additional controversy. The tweet deletion, which is always a mistake, became its own story. A brand that had tried to be clever about Ronaldo's gesture was now quietly backing away from Pogba's, and the internet noticed both moves simultaneously. The lesson Heineken learned that week, and it is a lesson every brand placed on a press conference table at a major tournament should take seriously, is that the player sitting behind the product is always more powerful than the product in front of them. This one requires a different kind of storytelling, because David Beckham and Adidas in 2006 is not a single moment. It is a relationship so complete and so visible across an entire tournament that the two became culturally inseparable in a way that has never fully been replicated. Beckham had been an Adidas ambassador for years before Germany 2006. But the 2006 World Cup, Beckham's fourth and what turned out to be his final World Cup, was the moment where the Adidas Predator became not just a boot, but a symbol of everything Beckham represented on a football pitch. The Predator starts to become the real trademark of the German brand. The revolution is based on two elements: the lowered Velcro publicized as ideal for experts of the locked kicks, and David Beckham. The British player has been, for all of his career, the greatest boost that transformed sport into an element of the mass pop culture. What made Beckham's 2006 Adidas moment culturally significant beyond simple endorsement was the vulnerability attached to it. England's campaign that year, Beckham playing through injury, crying after being substituted against Portugal in the quarterfinals in one of the most photographed moments of his career. Every image of that moment showed Beckham in full Adidas kit. The brand was present at his finest tournament hour and his most heartbreaking exit. That combination, triumph and heartbreak, both in your colors, is the kind of emotional branding that a formal advertising contract can set up but can never fully guarantee. It happened because Beckham was authentically himself, and Adidas was authentically his. Now we arrive at the most unusual entry on this list, because this is not a story about a conventional brand. It is a story about a craft, a culture, and a craftsman who watched from a cafe and recognized his own work on the most famous person in football at the most famous moment in football history. Qatar, December 18, 2022. Argentina have just beaten France on penalties. Just before Messi lifted the trophy, he was offered a Bisht, a traditional Arab cloak, by Qatari Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Messi obliged, putting his arms through the cloak and lifting the most important trophy in his career whilst wearing a regional gown. The garment Messi wore was a $2,200 Bisht, a traditional gown worn by men for weddings, graduations, and official events, and it was made by a craftsman named Salem's family company. Salem watched Argentina beat France in a cafe near the family store in Doha's Souk Waqif market, having earlier handed two of the delicate handmade cloaks to World Cup officials, one in Messi's diminutive size and one to fit the taller French captain Hugo Lloris. "We did not know who they were for, and I was stunned," he told AFP of the moment when the Emir dressed Messi in the cloak. Salem recognized his company tag and is now celebrating his own World Cup victory. Within 2 years of the seminal moment, Qatar led the bid to include the Bisht on UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage list. A craftsman, a family business, a garment handed to officials whose purpose they did not know, and a moment watched by billions that turned a traditional Arab cloak into one of the most discussed cultural objects in the world. The Bisht was not trying to go viral. It simply was what it was, and the world stopped to ask about it. That is the most authentic form of exposure that any product can ever receive. And now, 6 days ago, MetLife Stadium, New Jersey, the 2026 World Cup final between Spain and Argentina, watched by an estimated 1 billion people. During the match, Spain's Lamine Yamal lifted his shirt multiple times. Each time he did, the logo of German streetwear brand 6PM was briefly visible on his boxer shorts waistband. 6PM is a Frankfurt streetwear label founded in 2016 by Moroccan-German entrepreneur Akraf 8 Bazalam, particularly popular among hip-hop music fans. Most of the world had never heard of it before Sunday, July 19th. Once supporters identified the brand, demand surged rapidly and 6PM boxer shorts sold out shortly after the final. The brand posted on Instagram, "We're not saying they make you score better, but congrats at Lamine on winning the 2026 World Cup with LA Roja." At the time of writing, Lamine Yamal has not been announced as an official ambassador of the company that sells a pair of boxers for €30. He was simply wearing what he chose to wear. And what he chose to wear, in front of 1 billion people, at the most watched match in 4 years, while lifting his shirt in the moments that brought his team to the brink of the greatest game's greatest prize, turned a Frankfurt streetwear brand into a global sellout in the space of 90 minutes. This is where the story ends. And this is why it is different from all the others. 7 moments. Ronaldo moving Coca-Cola bottles. Beats being worn despite being banned. Neymar's gold boots carrying a childhood memory. Pogba quietly removing Heineken. Beckham's Adidas at triumph and heartbreak. Messi's Bisht lifting from a craftsman's table in a Doha market. Yamal's shirt lift exposing a Frankfurt label to 1 billion people. Every single one of these moments shares one quality that no advertising budget can purchase and no brand strategy can manufacture: authenticity. Every one of them worked, in different ways, for different reasons, with different commercial outcomes, because the player was being genuinely themselves. Ronaldo genuinely does not drink Coca-Cola. Beckham genuinely loved Adidas. Messi genuinely accepted a gesture of cultural respect. Yamal genuinely wore the brand he chose to wear on the biggest night of his career. The brands that tried to suppress these moments: Coca-Cola, Sony at the 2014 World Cup, FIFA's clean stadium policy, generated more conversation for their rivals than their own sponsorship spend generated for themselves. And the brands that embraced these moments: 6PM's Instagram post, Beats game before the game campaign, turned accidental exposure into cultural currency that paid dividends for years. The pattern is consistent. The lesson is clear. The player is always more powerful than the product. And the moment the player chooses is always more valuable than the moment the brand buys. 7 brands. 7 moments. 7 different ways that football's biggest stages handed companies something that billions of dollars in conventional advertising has never fully replicated: genuine, unplanned, human authenticity in front of the largest audiences sport can produce. Drop a comment below telling us which of these 7 moments you think was the most powerful and which brand you think benefited most from something they did not pay for. Subscribe and turn on notifications for every major football and marketing story as the post-World Cup transfer window develops. Because these 7 moments are a prologue, not a conclusion. The next one is already coming. It will be unplanned. It will be authentic. And whoever it happens to will have no idea they just made history. Share this video with every football fan and every marketing professional in your life. Because the gap between those two audiences is exactly where all 7 of these stories live.